The year is 490 BCE, and the fate of democracy, philosophy, and everything we consider Western civilization hangs in the balance. One wrong move, one moment of hesitation, and the world as we know it would never exist. This is the story of Marathon, not just a battle, but the day a small group of free men proved that courage could triumph over overwhelming odds. If this epic tale of ancient warfare captivates you as much as it does me, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible war stories and military history that changed the course of civilization. In 508 BCE, Athens embarked on a revolutionary experiment that would echo through millennia. Under the leadership of Cleisthenes, the city-state abandoned the rule of tyrants and aristocrats, embracing democracy, government by the people. Citizens gathered in the agora to debate laws, elect leaders, and shape their destiny. This radical concept of self-governance was unprecedented in human history. The Athenian military reflected these democratic values. Their army consisted of citizen soldiers called hoplites, free men who owned their own armor and weapons. These weren't professional soldiers fighting for pay or conquest. They were fathers, farmers, and craftsmen defending their homes and their right to self-determination. Each hoplite carried a bronze-tipped spear, a short sword, and most importantly, a large round shield called a hoplon, from which their name derived. Athens had also become a maritime power, with triremes, sleek warships powered by 170 rowers dominating the Aegean Sea. The city's wealth flowed from trade, and its culture flourished with philosophers, playwrights, and artists, who would influence humanity for thousands of years to come. Yet this beacon of freedom and innovation stood directly in the path of the world's greatest empire. To the east stretched the Persian Empire, a vast dominion spanning from India to Egypt, from the Caspian Sea to the Arabian Desert. Under Darius I, who ruled from 522 to 486 BCE, this empire encompassed over 2.5 million square miles and commanded perhaps 50 million subjects. The Persian military machine seemed unstoppable, with the elite immortals, 10,000 warriors whose ranks were immediately refilled when casualties occurred, serving as the backbone of their forces. The Persian system was built on absolute monarchy and divine kingship. Darius was not merely a ruler, but a god-king, whose word was law across continents. Local customs and religions were tolerated, but political autonomy was not. The empire's strength lay in its ability to mobilize massive armies from dozens of conquered peoples, each contributing their specialized fighting techniques and weapons. The Persians had already demonstrated their power by crushing the Lydian kingdom and subjugating the Greek cities of Ionia on the western coast of Asia Minor. These Ionian Greeks, cousins of the Athenians, had lived under Persian rule since 546 BCE, their democratic assemblies replaced by Persian-appointed tyrants. In 499 BCE, the Ionian Greeks rebelled against Persian rule in what became known as the Ionian Revolt. Led by Aristagoras of Miletus, they appealed to their fellow Greeks across the Aegean for support. Most city-states refused, fearing Persian retaliation, but Athens and Eretria answered the call. Athens sent 20 ships, and Eretria contributed 5 triremes to support their Ionian brethren. Together, the Allied forces achieved a stunning early victory, capturing and burning Sardis, the capital of the Persian satrapy of Lydia. However, the revolt ultimately failed after 6 years of bitter warfare, culminating in the destruction of Miletus in 494 BCE. Darius was furious. The burning of Sardis was an insult that demanded vengeance. According to the historian Herodotus, the Persian king commanded a servant to remind him 3 times daily, "Master, remember the Athenians." The empire that had never suffered such humiliation from Greek city-states would not let this affront go unpunished. By 492 BCE, Darius had decided on a full-scale invasion of mainland Greece. The first expedition, led by his son-in-law Mardonius, met disaster when Persian ships were wrecked by storms near Mount Athos, and Thracian tribes attacked the land forces. Undeterred, Darius planned a second, more direct assault. In 491 BCE, Persian heralds arrived in Greek cities demanding earth and water, the traditional symbols of submission to the Persian king. Many city-states complied. recognizing the futility of resistance against such overwhelming power. However, Athens and Sparta responded with characteristic defiance. The Athenians threw the Persian envoys into a pit, while the Spartans hurled them into a well, declaring that they could find earth and water there. The die was cast. Darius assembled a massive invasion force under the command of his nephew Artaphernes and the Median general Datis. Ancient sources suggest the Persian army numbered between 20,000 and 25,000 men, transported by a fleet of 600 ships. Their destination, the plain of Marathon, just 26 miles northeast of Athens. When news reached Athens that a Persian fleet had landed at Marathon, panic gripped the city. The Athenians faced an impossible choice: remain behind their walls and endure a siege, or march out to face the invaders on open ground. The first option meant watching their countryside burn while hoping for relief that might never come. The second seemed like suicide against such overwhelming odds. The Athenian assembly debated furiously. Some advocated surrender, arguing that resistance would only bring greater suffering. Others proposed fleeing the city entirely, abandoning Athens to save lives. But Miltiades, one of Athens' 10 generals, argued passionately for a bold strategy: march to Marathon and fight the Persians before they could advance on the city. Miltiades had unique credentials for this debate. He had lived under Persian rule as tyrant of the Chersonese Peninsula and understood Persian military tactics firsthand. He had even participated in Darius's failed Scythian expedition in 513 BCE. Most importantly, he had witnessed the Ionian revolt and knew that Persians, despite their numbers, were not invincible. Recognizing they could not face the Persians alone, Athens sent Pheidippides, their finest long-distance runner, to Sparta with a plea for help. The 140-mile journey through mountainous terrain took Pheidippides less than 2 days, an extraordinary feat of endurance that demonstrated the desperation of Athens' situation. The Spartans, bound by religious law, explained they could not march until after the full moon, still several days away. This delay would prove crucial, as it meant Athens would face the Persian invasion largely alone. However, the small city of Plataea, grateful for Athenian protection against Theban aggression, sent 1,000 hoplites to stand with their allies. Meanwhile, the Persian forces had established a beachhead at Marathon Bay. The location was strategically chosen. The wide plain provided ideal terrain for Persian cavalry, while the protected harbour allowed their fleet to land safely. From Marathon, they could either march directly on Athens or re-embark and attack the city from the sea. The story of Pheidippides captures the desperate urgency of Athens' situation. According to later accounts, after his failed mission to Sparta, he rejoined the Athenian army at Marathon. Following the battle's conclusion, he allegedly ran the 26 miles back to Athens to announce the victory, collapsing and dying after delivering his message: "Victory! We have won." While historians debate the accuracy of this specific account, Pheidippides represents the dedication and sacrifice of ordinary Athenians during this crisis. His legendary run became the inspiration for the modern marathon race, connecting ancient heroism to contemporary athletic achievement. Whether he died delivering news of victory or simply served as a messenger between Athens and Sparta, Pheidippides embodies the spirit of service that defined Athenian democracy. The modern marathon distance of 26.2 miles was standardized based on the distance from Marathon to Athens, though the exact route Pheidippides took remains unknown. Archaeological evidence suggests several possible paths through the Attic countryside, each presenting different challenges for a runner carrying urgent news of battle. On a September morning in 490 BCE, approximately 11,000 Athenian and Plataean hoplites marched north from Athens toward Marathon. The army represented the full military strength of Athens, every able-bodied citizen capable of affording hoplite armor. They left behind wives, children, and elderly parents, knowing that defeat would mean slavery or death for everyone they loved. The march itself was remarkable for its speed and organization. Unlike the sprawling Persian host with its baggage trains and diverse contingents, the Greek force moved with disciplined efficiency. Each hoplite carried his own food and equipment, allowing the army to cover the 26-mile distance in a single day. They established camp on the hills overlooking the Marathon plain, studying their enemies and preparing for battle. From their elevated position, the Greeks could observe the entire Persian deployment. The enemy camp sprawled across the plain, with cavalry horses grazing near the shore and infantry formations practicing maneuvers. Persian ships lined the beach, their painted eyes and bronze rams gleaming in the sunlight. The sight must have been both magnificent and terrifying, a reminder of the empire's vast resources and military sophistication. For several days, the two armies faced each other without fighting. The Persians, confident in their numerical superiority and cavalry advantage, waited for the Greeks to descend onto the plain, where they could be crushed by mounted archers and overwhelmed by superior numbers. The Greeks, meanwhile, held the high ground and debated their next move. This period of waiting tested both armies' resolve. Among the Athenian generals, opinions were divided. 5 supported immediate attack, while 5 counseled patience, hoping Spartan reinforcements would arrive. Miltiades found himself in the minority, advocating for bold action, while others preferred defensive caution. The Persian commanders faced their own challenges. Every day of delay allowed more Greek city-states to potentially join the Athenian cause. Moreover, their ships required regular reprovisioning, and maintaining a large army far from home bases created logistical difficulties. Most importantly, Persian intelligence suggested that a pro-Persian faction in Athens might betray the city if the army could be drawn away from its defenses. The deadlock among Athenian generals was broken by Callimachus, the polemarch war archon, who held the deciding vote in military councils. Miltiades approached him privately, painting a stark picture of Athens' future. If they waited, he argued, Persian gold would corrupt Athens from within, turning citizen against citizen until resistance crumbled. If they fought and lost, they would die as free men. If they fought and won, Athens would achieve glory that would echo through the ages. Callimachus cast his vote for battle, demonstrating how democratic decision-making functioned even in the most desperate circumstances. Unlike the Persian system, where Darius's word was absolute law, Athenian generals reached consensus through debate and persuasion. This process, though slower than autocratic command, created deeper commitment to the chosen course of action. The decision to fight represented more than military strategy. It was a declaration of values. The Athenians chose to risk everything rather than submit to foreign rule or compromise their democratic principles. They would face the Persian Empire not as subjects seeking mercy, but as free citizens defending their way of life. On the morning of September 12, 490 BCE, Miltiades deployed the Greek army in a revolutionary formation. Traditional hoplite tactics called for deep formations that relied on weight and pushing power, but Miltiades thinned his center and strengthened his wings. This risky strategy aimed to envelope the Persian forces in a double envelopment, similar to the tactic Hannibal would later use at Cannae. The Greek center, commanded by Callimachus and Aristides, consisted of only 4 ranks deep, barely enough to maintain formation cohesion. The wings, led by Miltiades on the right and Themistocles on the left, deployed 8 ranks deep. This arrangement violated conventional military wisdom, but reflected Miltiades' understanding of Persian tactics and Greek capabilities. Each hoplite carried approximately 70 pounds of bronze armor, including a breastplate, greaves, helmet, and the iconic round shield. Their primary weapon was an 8-foot spear designed for thrusting in close formation. Unlike Persian forces, which included archers, cavalry, and various specialized units, the Greek army was homogeneous. Citizen soldiers trained to fight as a unified phalanx. At dawn, Miltiades gave the order that would echo through history. Forward! The Greek phalanx began its advance across the Marathon plain, covering nearly a mile of open ground under Persian arrow fire. What happened next defied all military convention. As they approached the enemy line, the Greeks broke into a run. This charge was unprecedented in ancient warfare. Hoplites traditionally advanced at a steady walk, maintaining formation integrity until the moment of contact. Running risked breaking ranks and arriving at the enemy line exhausted and disorganized. However, Miltiades calculated that speed would minimize casualties from Persian arrows and create psychological shock among enemy forces who had never faced such tactics. The sight of 11,000 armored Greeks charging across the plain must have been extraordinary. Ancient sources describe the earth shaking under their feet and their war cries echoing off the surrounding hills. The Persians, accustomed to enemies who approached cautiously or fled entirely, found themselves facing warriors who seemed to welcome death in battle. The clash, when Greek and Persian lines met, was devastating in its intensity. The thin Greek center initially gave ground under Persian pressure, just as Miltiades had planned. Persian infantry, confident in their numbers and supported by archers, pushed forward into what appeared to be a breakthrough. However, this advance was exactly what the Greek wings had been waiting for. As the Persian center committed to pursuing the retreating Greeks, Miltiades and Themistocles led their strengthened wings in simultaneous attacks on the Persian flanks. The enemy formation, stretched thin by their advance, could not withstand this double assault. Persian units found themselves attacked from three directions, while their cavalry remained largely ineffective on the rough terrain near the Greek flanks. The battle's turning point came when Persian morale broke. Troops who had seemed invincible suddenly found themselves surrounded and outfought by heavily armored Greeks wielding long spears. The Persian retreat began as a tactical withdrawal, but quickly became a rout as panic spread through their ranks. Warriors who had conquered cities across 3 continents fled toward their ships, pursued by exultant Greeks. The Battle of Marathon concluded with complete Greek victory. According to Herodotus, Persian casualties numbered 6,400 dead, compared to only 192 Athenian losses. While ancient casualty figures are often exaggerated, the disparity clearly indicates the magnitude of Greek success. The Persian fleet departed hastily, leaving behind equipment, supplies, and their reputation for invincibility. Among the Athenian dead was Callimachus, the polemarch whose vote had made the battle possible. He died fighting in the front ranks, embodying the democratic principle that leaders should share the dangers they ask others to face. His sacrifice represented the price of freedom. Victory required not just courage, but the willingness of good men to die for their principles. The aftermath of battle revealed the extent of Persian preparations for conquest. Captured equipment included armor, weapons, and supplies intended for a long campaign. Most significantly, the Greeks discovered evidence of Persian plans to signal supporters within Athens, confirming Miltiades' warnings about internal betrayal. The victory at Marathon had prevented not just military conquest, but the collapse of Athenian democracy from within. News of the Marathon victory reached Athens within hours, carried by runners who had witnessed the impossible become reality. The city that had faced potential destruction and slavery erupted in celebration. Citizens who had prepared for siege or flight instead welcomed returning heroes who had achieved what no one thought possible, defeating the Persian Empire in open battle. The psychological impact of Marathon on Athenian society cannot be overstated. A generation that had grown up in democracy's shadow, uncertain of their ability to defend their way of life, suddenly possessed unshakable confidence. They had proven that free citizens could outfight the slaves and subjects of despotic empires. This confidence would fuel Athens' golden age and its leadership of the Greek world. Marathon also established military reputations that would shape the next phase of Greco-Persian conflict. Miltiades became a hero whose tactical genius was recognized throughout Greece. Themistocles, who had commanded the left wing, gained credibility that would later prove crucial in building Athens' naval power. These leaders had demonstrated that Greek military innovation could overcome Persian numerical superiority. The defeat at Marathon sent shockwaves through the Persian Empire. Darius, who had never experienced such humiliation, immediately began planning a much larger invasion. The second Persian expedition would be led by his son Xerxes and would dwarf the force that had landed at Marathon. However, Darius died in 486 BCE before he could launch this revenge campaign, leaving the task to his heir. The Battle of Marathon had revealed fatal flaws in Persian military strategy. Their reliance on numerical superiority and diverse contingents proved inadequate against disciplined, heavily armored opponents fighting on favorable terrain. Persian commanders had underestimated Greek military capabilities and overestimated their own tactical flexibility. These lessons would influence Persian planning for the massive invasion that would come 10 years later. More importantly, Marathon damaged Persian prestige throughout their empire. Subject peoples who had accepted Persian rule as inevitable now saw evidence that the empire could be defeated. While no immediate revolts followed, the seed of resistance had been planted. The Greeks had shown that the Persian military machine, for all its size and reputation, was not invincible. Victory at Marathon galvanized the entire Greek world. City-states that had considered submission to Persia began reconsidering their options. The Athenian example demonstrated that Greeks could successfully resist the world's mightiest empire if they possessed the courage and unity to fight. Sparta, which had arrived too late for the battle, was deeply impressed by Athenian achievement. The Spartans examined the battlefield, praised the Greek dead, and promised future cooperation against Persian threats. This mutual respect between Athens and Sparta would prove crucial during Xerxes' invasion, though their alliance would not survive the Persian defeat. Other Greek city-states began military preparations and diplomatic discussions about collective defense. The success at Marathon had bought time. Everyone understood that the Persians would return with overwhelming force. However, Greeks now possessed proof that resistance was possible and that Persian power had limits. This knowledge would sustain them through the dark days of Thermopylae and Artemisium until final victory at Salamis and Plataea. The military innovations displayed at Marathon influenced tactical development for centuries. The combination of disciplined training, innovative tactics, and high morale became the foundation of Western military tradition. From Alexander's conquests to modern special operations, the lessons of Marathon remain relevant to military professionals worldwide. Perhaps most importantly, Marathon created a story that continues to inspire individual achievement. The modern marathon race connects millions of contemporary athletes to ancient heroism, while the battle itself provides a historical example of how ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things when united by common purpose and willing to risk everything for their beliefs. The Battle of Marathon reminds us that history's great turning points often depend on the courage of individuals willing to stand up for their principles. In our own time, when democratic values face new challenges, the example of those Athenian hoplites charging across the Marathon plain provides both inspiration and instruction. They showed us that freedom is never free, but that it can be preserved by those with the courage to defend it. Their victory 2,500 years ago continues to echo in our modern world, proving that some achievements transcend their historical moment to become eternal sources of human inspiration. The Battle of Marathon was indeed a clash of civilizations, and the civilization that values freedom, democracy, and human dignity emerged victorious, shaping the world we inherit today. The story of Marathon shows us that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when they fight for what matters most. If this incredible tale of ancient warfare and military genius resonates with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We're building a community of war history enthusiasts who believe the great battles of the past can inspire us to face our own challenges with the same tactical brilliance and warrior spirit those ancient Greeks showed on that fateful day at Marathon.